Thanks, Jana. Governor Maura Healey and First Cabinet-level Veterans Secretary John Santiago were in Agawam this afternoon to honor veterans for Memorial Day. The ceremony took place at the Massachusetts Veterans Memorial Cemetery at 1 p.m. Several local and state leaders were also in attendance, including State Senator John Vilas, who served in the military. Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno and Agawam Mayor Bill Sapelli were also at the ceremony. During her speech today, Governor Healey touched on how veterans should be remembered.
We believe that military service is the highest form of service and therefore should be recognized at the highest level of government with all of the resources brought to bear.
Healey added that she felt incredibly moved to see so many people and families at the cemetery celebrating the loss of an armed forces member.